Well, something that struck me right away in the book is you mentioned a PlayStation 7, which of course made me crazy jealous. Like, I want a PlayStation 7. That sounds great.
Wouldn't.
I was just curious, was that you planning ahead? Like, this is a book now that's got some longevity. We've got at least a decade before that's actually the number, right? Or
Yeah. So Leo is 13 years old. I was imagining if Leo was born today. And so that is the closest I come to dating anything in the book. I mean, one of the quotes when I was selling the book was a paraphrase of a Carl Sagan quote that is one of the characters says it in the book, in that just talking about magic. There's no magic here because magic is just science that we don't understand yet. And so I didn't want there to be any magic, any superpowers. This is a guy who is given a brain that he can solve things, and then like what he learns, he applies. And he's not always right. He usually forgets a key detail. Things go askew, but he's constantly observing and he's constantly trying to make things better. Which, if you ever look at Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, it is just filled with him doing that. It is filled with so many things that he tried that failed, but he took one core element of that effort and then built on it and carried that idea into something else, which is a little bit like the writing packets at late night, where you're writing 50 things and 48 of them are garbage, but 2 of them are good enough to end up on a network TV show. And I think, like, you know, I mean, that's what my Leo is doing over the course of that book, is taking the things that he learns and applying them. I mean, it's funny that like Da Vinci is regarded as maybe like the best brain that ever existed. Like the most competencies at the most incredible things and the broadest number of them. And he's still in his notebooks. There's so many notes of him cursing at himself because he's trying to conjugate verbs in Latin and he can't do it. And he hates it. It's just like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't want to talk to these people who only speak Latin anyway. Like, what am I doing here? And yeah, I mean, that is something I incorporated into the book, was my Leo hates Latin and like can't understand Latin when he encounters it for the first time.
And so this is all of your love of the Renaissance back from your days in Brown that you've carried through. What is it about the Renaissance? I mean, obviously we talked about Da Vinci and how that inspires you. Is it Da Vinci in specific, or is it the entire time frame?
I think it's the entire time frame. I think it's the shift towards this shift to humanism and this shift of like, you know, let's make things better in our immediate vicinity as much as possible. And by doing that, we're gonna chase down truth and empirical truth by this thing called the scientific method, and we're gonna hopefully let go of some of the superstition. And I mean, it's hard to argue that in the succeeding 500 years that things aren't better for a vast majority of people versus how most people lived like 600, 700 years ago.
I mean, we've got air conditioning. We've got not PlayStation 7s, but PlayStation 4s and 5s.
Have you found a PS5 yet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. What? How?
Well, I was hovering. I'm a video game junkie,
Right.
so I was hovering on the site after the big presentation where they revealed all the trailers, just in case. And I didn't trust them to wait till the next day, and I was right. So I was happened to get in right in the first batch and did my pre-order. And even then, I was sure somebody was going to jack it off the truck before it got here, but nope, there it was on open. It was one of the proudest. I am not going to be a member of the 1%. At this point in my life, I've accepted that's probably not going to happen for me. But by God, that day I was. Ooh, it was nice.
You played in a top hat and a monocle, just the entire.
Yeah.
I don't know.
told these graphics are in 4K, but I can't see because I got the stupid monocle in. But I will take it out. This is my moment.
What game? What is your favorite game that you played on there so far?
So far, Miles Morales was the best. Although, really, the nice thing about the PS5 is it makes all of the old games better, and I skipped the Pro in between, so I missed the fanciness. So all the old games look even better. So
yeah. Do you ever play Assassin's Creed 2?
Of course. 2 is the one with the Da Vinci. That's the more maybe like 70% of my Da Vinci knowledge comes from Assassin's Creed 2.
From when he's trying to make a tank for Ezio. Yeah, but like I loved that video game. That finishing that game felt like finishing a great book. Like I knew I was going to come back to it. I bought the update twice when they did the Ezio collection on PS4. And just, man, I really love that game. I love that story and the way they kind of interwove things in the Renaissance and how I felt like you could feel it. You could feel the movement towards truth and empiricism and away from superstition, even in the narrative in that video game.
Yes. I remember when my wife and I went to Vegas, we walked through the Venetian, and then, they've got a canal there, and they've got some of the walls done up the same. And I'm looking at it, she's like, "Are you struck by the beauty?" You're just looking at it. Like, yeah, I'm in no way plotting how Ezio would climb that so easily.
I'm definitely not looking for a haystack that I can dive into.
Of course. There's one thing I've learned. If video games are to be believed, doesn't matter how high you are, just aim for the haystack. You'll be fine. I want, when they get bored with the series, I want somebody just one time to have left a pitchfork in there. He doesn't have to die. Just get badly wounded.
Oh, they should do that. That should be one of the things. Just funk. Yeah. That was my favorite one of that series, and it's not close.
I think Odyssey might be my favorite, but that's probably because I spent a lot of time studying Greek literature in college, and was like, all right, well, this is definitely going to come in handy. And by God, finally there was a video game for which I could turn to my wife and be like, you know what that's based on?
Yeah.
And it has come in handy. Oh, what a useful thing to have learned.
She watches you play?
She walks by while I play. We've been together long enough that I always feel bad for the wife. I felt bad back in college for the girlfriends that were there and would sit and watch the boyfriend all night, and that was the evening's plan. Yep. I don't think we ever had that phase. No. But definitely at the phase where that's all the day's work is done, and I've got my reading knocked out, and then for about an hour and a half. Which feels like a waste of a PlayStation 5. If you're listening and you desperately wanted one and I got it for my hour and a half a night, I agree. It's not fair.
Yeah, I have to hide it. Like, I might as well be doing heroin if I sit down and really get into a good 2-hour PlayStation run. Like, it's just... Yeah. My wife will not be thrilled.
Past a certain point, I'm not thrilled. Like, man, I pushed a lot of buttons, but I had ambition. I had goals today. What happened?
It is like they really, and God, that game would get me more than any other. Like that game would get me where it'd be like, I just spent 12 hours running around Renaissance Florence. What am I doing? And I mean, in hindsight, like, yeah, I was probably incorporating things into this book, but at the time, I remember being like, "Oh, well, this is a waste of a day." But
I cut TV out of my life to compensate.
Yeah,
like I'll basically, if I've seen a show, I mostly listen to it while I was playing the video game, or I listen to books on games where the story is not particularly gripping. Which is, I know, I'm sorry, video game writers, we worked really hard on Borderlands 3. I don't care. Just turn the volume down on the story part. That's the guy we got to shoot. All right, we'll go shoot him. And then you put a book on tape on or a podcast, and you can learn things while you're playing. And I don't know. It's not, I can't justify it as great, but I could justify it as, if I had binged an entire television series, I don't feel that my time would necessarily have been better spent.
Yeah, I think, you're in all likelihood, you're right. It's weird how there are some games though where I really have to, you kind of have to like engage with them like literature. Like some games you get into and you're like, oh, now I like Horizon Zero Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would hear like a machine coming, like you would hear something trying to hunt you from far away, so I couldn't listen to.
Yeah, but I mean, you can turn it half on and then you just put your phone next to you with the book on tape going. And like you still hear the dinosaur roaring, and like if they're gonna talk part of the story, you can pause it. But most video game noises are just pew pew and rah rah. And you don't need to hear all that.
That's so funny. My son and I, we moved to a house with a yard about a week ago, and there were these two hoses running around. And so I took the nozzles off of both hoses, and have just been like fake running around chasing each other and going pew pew pew. So now that is what he has been yelling at me all the time is pew pew. Like he just wants to go play pew pew.
Yeah, that's the other thing that really gets into video game time is having a child, and you got to spend time with them and raise them, and
they've got all kinds of questions.
Plus, you got it right at some point.
Yeah, do some work.